James Aspey and Carly Taylor, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers podcast today.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So you're actually around the corner from where we live, but we are out of town on a family vacation now. So we couldn't do this in person. We're doing it in Skype, but that's A-okay. And we have so many exciting things to talk about today. But we wanted to know before we start, do you have a moment of gratitude to share with us and the listeners? Carly, why don't you go first?
Oh, okay. Probably my family being home visiting is super nice now that I don't live in Toronto. I feel like we all get along so much better in a way because when we're together, it's really special. And just feeling super grateful for. I have a pretty big family, and getting to spend the last few weeks with them in Toronto has been just beautiful. I love coming home for the summers now.
That's beautiful. Do you have a city that's your home now, or is it just the world?
Yeah, we're still pretty nomadic, so not quite yet. Probably somewhere in Australia as of next year, perhaps. But yeah, I guess Toronto will always be home for me in a way because my whole family's here. So, yeah.
I agree. Home is where the family is. James, what about you? What's your moment of gratitude?
I'm very grateful that technology has evolved to a point where we can talk like this and share such an important world-changing message that can reduce so much suffering, so much violence, improve things in just countless different ways. And technology helps us reach so many people and just speed up the process so much. So I'm very grateful to all the people who helped create this MacBook Air and figured out all the Wi-Fi signals and just all the things that went into us being able to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, especially Apple products. Yeah.
It is pretty awesome to have this technology and to be able to talk from anywhere in the world. The world has become such a small place. You're from Australia. Carly, you just mentioned that you're going to be probably going back to Australia. Let's just start with this because this week in the news, we heard, or I read an article that Australia, the number one killer in Australia is heart disease. And the Heart Foundation in Australia put out some information and recommendations saying that people should be reducing their intake of meat, but it's okay for them to continue to drink full-fat milk, to eat cheese and yogurt. And I don't know if you heard that information yet, but I wanted to get your take on that situation.
And didn't they use the type of vocabulary like they're encouraged to still take part in eating their dairy products?
Yeah, it's okay for them to continue to do that.
While milk is just liquid meat, the reasons why you shouldn't eat meat in terms of heart disease are the same reasons why you shouldn't consume any animal product, including dairy, including eggs. The dairy industry is a very powerful, very wealthy industry, and unfortunately there's a lot of corruption when it comes to selling these products and the way that they are sold. So the government guidelines are unfortunately influenced by these very powerful industries, and it doesn't surprise me at all that their recommendations fall so short from the ideal recommendations of simply eliminating all animal products. The only diet ever proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients is a diet free from all animal products. No other diet has done that. No diet consuming some dairy, some full-fat dairy, some low-fat dairy, an egg a week. No other diet other than a whole food plant-based diet has reversed heart disease in the majority of patients. So if heart disease is the biggest killer and they're giving recommendations, of course the most logical thing to recommend is the diet that has proven to be the most effective when it comes to treating heart disease. And that's where you can see they're either uninformed about the facts of what a whole food plant-based diet can do, or they're biased and corrupt. And either way, the guidelines are wrong. So it doesn't really matter why, really. The only thing that matters is that the truth gets out there and people hear it and learn it and apply it more than anything.
So I'm happy that they've at least said cut the meat, right? Or cut the solid meat out of the diet. And then what I actually find is that when people do need to take meat, dairy, fish out of their meat and red meat, white meat, fish out of their diet, they start to look up recipes that are more vegetarian based. And when they start to look up research that's more vegetarian based, and from there they get brought on to more of the vegan recipes, they find more of the vegan research, or they do go ahead and watch Forks Over Knives and those kind of documentary films. And it is actually a really great path for people to get onto the vegan bandwagon or the plant-based bandwagon, because they're not everything's being ripped from them right away, and they can then go on their own journey. So although there is a lot of work to be done, I do kind of see the positive in it as well.
Oh, definitely. And I think that there's just like psychologically, what we're talking about is the foot in the door effect, right? Most people are way more swayed by hearing something that they find to be a reasonable request and then taking that on board, having their behavior changed. And then when they're presented with new information, when they watch Forks Over Knives, for example, they're already thinking, oh, well, I'm already not eating meat. And it's just way easier for them to make the other changes. So it's definitely a positive thing. Anytime we are getting animal products are not a healthy thing to consume or not an ethical thing to consume in the mainstream media in whatever context, it is getting people on board to the information that most of us are ignorant to. So it's definitely a positive thing. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's still an improvement to what they used to recommend, which was eat meat, eat dairy, eat eggs. It is all a part of a balanced diet. So at least they're saying, actually, have a little less of this thing that we said you should eat. So it's something. It's small progress, but also it can have a large effect, a large benefit.
For sure.
If you're okay with it, I think I'm going to start calling dairy liquid meat, and I think it's going to be a fast way to turn people off quickly.
I believe it was Dr. Clapper who I heard that from, who described it as liquid meat. So yeah, I would be more than happy for you to do that. I'm sure he wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's nice to see that Australia, I think, has taken the heels of Canada's food guide, where they stopped recommending so many portions of meat and turned it into even using plant-based protein options as something that is important in the lifestyle, and they recognize that, which I think is really a positive move. Unfortunately, that people are going to follow those guidelines and they're going to do exactly what they're told because they don't do their own research and don't learn enough about nutrition, and nutrition is such a confusing field as it is. But to come back to where you started with today's moment of gratitude, because the world is shrinking and the internet is so much more available and we can connect with different people, there's so many amazing advocates out there that are pushing positive messages when it comes to plant-based nutrition and the vegan lifestyle. And I think that if people really want to understand nutrition, they will be able to find the right sources of information with the science that backs all of it. And that's the key. There is so much scientific evidence and proof that the plant-based diet is really the only one that could prevent and reverse all these chronic illnesses and diseases.
And there's two sides.
Yeah, and we're not that special. I was just going to say, we're not that special to have stumbled across that information. Where we got the information early, we're very lucky. It's very logical. It's very clear. It's only a matter of time before everybody else realizes how obvious the solution is. We realized it. We're not super highly intellectual beings or any different from any other mainstream person out there. We just stumbled across the information first and realized
at the right time in our lives too.
Yeah, and realized the truth in it, saw the evidence, which is undeniable, and we changed because, of course, that is what you will want to do if you're trying to avoid all that suffering and all those diseases. So yeah, it's just a matter of time before everybody else gets on board, and like you said, with so many people advocating for it, and that's why we're seeing so much change right now. And Canada has changed their guidelines, and so has Australia, and all these new documentaries out there and all the hype around a plant-based diet. This isn't a trend that's going to die off. It is a movement that is going to continue to grow until this is the norm, until everybody's doing it.
So talk about timing, and of course there's two sides to this coin. There's for the animals or for our health, and then eventually, the lines get blurred a little bit. But Carly, were you vegan before you met James, and do you consider yourself first and foremost plant-based or first and foremost vegan?
Yeah, I've been vegan for about 4.5 years. James and I have been together almost 2 now. So that was, in terms of timing, I think that it's very easy to be influenced by your environment when you're presented with this information. If you're surrounded, if you know no vegans in real life and you watch something like Forks Over Knives and then you go and share it with like your mom or your sister and you just get, slammed down with like defensiveness and you're not really educated enough to be able to have a conversation in an educated way at that point, it's really tough. And that's why I mentioned timing, because I feel like I went vegan when I was doing my semester abroad in Australia, and that was certainly a time when I had the privilege of grocery shopping for myself and being really independent in my choices, where I was able to solidify my decision. It was for ethical reasons initially, so I definitely was on the vegan bandwagon before I was on the Whole Foods plant-based bandwagon. I'd watch Earthlings. That was my first exposure to how we treat animals in the different animal agriculture industries, and I just decided that I didn't want to partake in it anymore. And I found it super easy to go to the grocery store and just buy something else. Just move my hand, choose the soy milk, choose the veggie burgers instead of the organic free range chicken breast that I was buying for the longest time. And yeah, I found it like it definitely helped to have that little bit of space to do my own research and then be able to come home several months later to my family and be like, here's what I'm doing. And then when I was presented with the like barrage of questions, I actually had educated responses to them and it didn't kind of sweep me off my feet. So I think in terms of timing, that's something to consider when, we're presenting someone with this information, like really meeting them where of the barriers they're going to maybe be faced with in terms of their environment, the people that they're surrounded with, and arming them with the answers to the questions they're going to be asked and stuff like that. I think that's a huge part in helping people go vegan and stay vegan, is interacting with the people in their life who are going to ask them questions,
Absolutely.
So, so then James, how long have you been vegan?
It'll be 6 years on January 1st.
6 years on January 1st. Oh, so you made a very clear mark. I wish I remembered my birthday. I want to say it's May 2nd, but I don't know. That's the number. That's the day that I came up with.
It was that sounds pretty good. It was a very clear mark because that was the day that I also started my Vow of Silence, which I did to raise awareness for animals. And I would have liked to have been able to call myself vegan sooner. And I was vegan at heart. I really wanted to be vegan. I just had an eating disorder that I was battling with, and it was very hard for me to give up my addiction to mainly dairy, mainly dairy at that point. I was a full vegetarian for a year prior, but to give up my addiction to dairy was a very big challenge for me, and I tried, and I'd go a couple of weeks of eating a plant-based diet, and then I'd relapse and binge on dairy again, on some ice cream or something. And when I started my Vow of Silence on January 1st, 2013, I knew, how can I do this huge action for animals, take a year out of my life, not speak for a whole year, and still be contributing to the very thing that I am trying to fight against? I just couldn't do that to the animals. It would affect my credibility. It wouldn't make sense. And I just wanted to stop my contribution. I didn't want them to suffer because of me, clearly, which is why I was doing this huge Vow of Silence. So, yeah, that very same day I said, that's it. From this day on, no matter what, I will not ever deliberately consume another animal product again. And, yeah, that has been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
So how does someone go from knowing that their eating disorder has sabotaged what they've wanted to do before to saying, okay, I'm going to go full in. I'm going to commit to a full year of not only not hurting any animals in any way possible, but also being completely silent? How does that, was that a dream that you woke up to and were like, let's do it? How did that come about?
It was a year prior to me starting my Vow of Silence on I started the Vow of Silence, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. I started on January 1st, 2014. January 1st, 2013, I began a 10-day silent meditation course called Vipassana meditation. And it was during that silent course that I had the idea to potentially not speak for an entire year. Why stop at 10 days? Maybe a year would be something interesting to do in my life. And then I realized that it could actually be a great way to raise awareness for something I care about. At that point, I'd been vegetarian for a few months, and I had become instantly very passionate as soon as I realized what was happening and that it didn't need to be happening, and that it was such a simple solution to stop it happening. I felt very compelled to spread this message, to live it and to spread it, because I couldn't see any greater way for me in my life to have such a positive impact, to reduce so much suffering and to increase so much peace in this world. And I still agree with that today. So I had the idea to do the Vow of Silence, and then I planned for the year how I was going to make it work. I was going to write a blog. I was going to travel around Australia, share my experience, share what I was learning about animals, visit sanctuaries, visit factory farms, share all the things. And during that time of me studying animal rights is when I realized that being a vegetarian was not enough. There's just as much reason to be not consuming dairy and eggs and wearing leather and using products that have been tested on animals. There's just as much reason not to use every animal product as there is not to eat meat. There is as much violence in behind every single animal product. They all involve exploiting an animal, using an animal, abusing and eventually slaughtering, murdering an animal. So when I realized that, then I knew I had to be vegan, and I'd spent months of that year trying to achieve that. But again, because of my eating disorder, it became hard. And so when the day came for me to start my Vow of Silence, I just took a very strong determination that is it. I was working on it. There was some determination, but I was still having slip-ups. I'll just have a little bit. Oh, you're going to throw it away. Give it here. I made a decision that I did not want that in my body. I did not want people to see that I would condone that or to even view those products as food. They are not food. And when I made that decision and I started that vow, it was still very hard. I still had an eating disorder, but on that same day, actually, my eating disorder had turned from an addiction to food and binge eating to bulimia. And my bulimia was mainly, it wasn't a body image thing like many people's bulimia is, I believe. But for me, it was purely I could not stop eating. I would eat until I needed to vomit, and then I would continue eating again. And on that same day that I started the Vow of Silence, that I decided to become vegan, I also took another vow to never, ever binge and purge my food again. And so about a week into my Vow of Silence, into my vegan journey, I did binge on a liter of vegan ice cream and half a jar of peanut butter. And I wanted so badly to purge it back up. Ice cream and peanut butter is such an easy food to bring back up. And so I very much wanted to do that. I felt disgusting that I'd eaten it. I wasn't over binge eating yet, but I stuck with my decision to not purge it back up. So it stayed in there. I was so uncomfortable. And then because of that discomfort, the next time when I binged again, I stopped a little sooner. I didn't want to get to that uncomfortable point again. I was still very uncomfortable, but a little less. And over time, I binged less. I got more and more control over my food to the point that I'm at now, where I feel I have an excellent relationship with eating. I eat when I'm hungry. I stop when I'm full. I barely ever eat the foods that I used to binge on. I have no issue at all. Nothing. I've really come full circle with it and got to a point that I never thought I would be able to get to with food. And I think veganism helped a lot with that. Because people think that veganism is restrictive. You restrict some foods, and that is true, some foods, but you add in so many new ones. I never used to eat rice or potatoes or fruit even. And so by adding all these nutritious foods that my body thrives on, I didn't feel the need to binge on other sugary foods. I was getting natural sugars from fruit, which was something that I didn't eat when I was a meat eater. And it helped in so many ways.
From what you just said, you sound like an extremely intrinsically motivated person. And a lot of people that are out there are not motivated intrinsically like you are to be able to make those choices and decisions for themselves, and they pay too much attention.
I actually disagree, man. If I can just pause you on that point and then please finish, please remember what you're going to say. I think people are motivated. They want to change. They have so much reason to change. They're desperate to change. They want it so badly. They just don't know how. They don't have the right technique to change. They don't know how to come out of their addictions or their cravings. And that's why I'm very fortunate to have stumbled across the Vipassana meditation technique, because that is what got me out of my addiction, understanding my craving and then how to work with that craving rather than just succumb to that craving.
Perfect. So, and for those people that don't know how to change but do want to change, what could we say to them to give them that extra push in the right direction that could hopefully give them that confidence to make those changes that they need to make?
I think the first thing you have to realize is that you can do it. You are not stuck with this illness or this issue that you currently have. I thought I was going to be bulimic for the rest of my life. I'd given up numerous times. I try so hard, and then I have to live with this now. This is who I am now. However this happened, this is who I am now. Same with drug addiction. People think, okay, I'm just addicted to drugs. I can't come out of this. This is just what I do now. This is just who I am now. And people have to understand that they can fully come out of it, not to a point where they are suffering less from it, but to a point where it is completely in their past. It is a non-issue in their life anymore. So first of all, to understand, to have that faith in yourself that you can get to that point. And then just to understand that there are certain ways to work that will get you there. So in particular, when it comes to addiction and craving, the technique to get you there is a meditation technique that is about observing the craving when it comes. A craving comes, it manifests as an uncomfortable sensation in your body. And what we usually do is run from it. We try to distract ourselves, or we just go to our drug of choice, whether it's television or it's sex or it's food or it's drugs, whatever it is. And that just gets you deeper into your addiction. But what you can do to come out of your addiction, the craving is there, the uncomfortable sensation that it is manifested as is there. Observe it, look at it, really face it head on. What is this? How does this manifest in my body? It's tension, it's pressure, it's heat. Look at it, watch how it changes. The craving, the feeling, the discomfort will change, and ultimately it will pass away. When it passes away, you've just taken a step out of your craving. Every craving is a stepping stone out of your addiction to work with. So when that craving disappears without you having to run from it and without you having to go to your drug of choice, you have just built strength. And the next time that craving comes, it won't be a 9 out of 10 craving. It will be an 8 out of 10 craving or a 7 out of 10. Instead of the craving lasting 30 minutes, it will last 25 minutes. It will last 20 minutes. And like this, you practice like this. The craving comes. It's hard. You have to face it. You won't always get through it. But if you just are a bit better this time than you were last time, and you face it that little bit longer until you go, okay, I just need my drug, you still gained strength. You still did some repetitions. You still took some steps out of your addiction. You're not going to be perfect straight away, but that is the path to come out of it.
And I think that goes for any addiction that's out there, not just binge eating, right? Like you said, like whether it's gambling or sex or what have you, practicing overcoming it, even if it's just for a couple of extra minutes, can really help. I wanted to ask you a question. Did you ever make the comparison of not torturing animals and the torture that you were putting yourself through and not wanting to torture yourself anymore?
I felt that I deserved better for myself. I didn't feel like I deserved to suffer so much. And I knew I was creating it for myself, but no, not really. I didn't really compare it to the animals. I don't think I was suffering, but what the animals are going through is a torture that I've never experienced.
What we try to teach our children is not to hurt anyone, right? So they say, but we're vegan for the animals. And I'm constantly reminding them that we're not just vegan for the animals, but that we're vegan for other humans as well and for ourselves as well. And that we need to spread that compassion around. all over. So, you know, sometimes people make that connection between ourselves and don't. But I love when people can turn around and say, I don't want to see anyone suffering anymore. And you've done so much, like with that vow of silence, you've done so much. So what I wanted to say was, I just thought it was so incredible how so many of us, I mean, I've only been on one march with my daughter, but you know, we talk about being the voice of the voiceless, but you were the voiceless for the voiceless, but made such a huge impact. Can you tell us a little bit about that impact that you made over that year?
Yeah, during the year, there was some impact. I was writing my blog and gained some following, and I received still many messages from people who had decided to make some changes in their life that would positively impact animals and themselves, obviously, as well. But the real impacts came when I spoke for the first time and broke my vow of silence on morning TV. It was an interview that was seen by tens of millions of people. And it was an animal rights message, a plea for veganism, to people to look in their hearts, to align their actions with their values, and to become vegan. And yeah, I mean, to reach so many people with such a clear, concise message had an incredible impact. People learned about me. They started asking me to come and give speeches. And again, more speeches reached tens of millions more people. And you know, the ripple effect of each individual changing and inspiring the people around them. It has been, you know, that vow of silence created a large wave for many people. So yeah, it was ironic that to not speak for a year gave me a voice that so many people heard in the end.
So I'm sure that people ask you all the time, what was it like to actually get those words out loud for the first time? Did you startle yourself? Was your throat dry?
I felt like I was doing a bad thing, like something naughty, because I'd been telling myself not to speak for an entire year. And it was slightly nerve-wracking because I was on TV. I was talking for the first time after a year. I had a very important thing I wanted to say. But it felt very good to be able to have the opportunity to speak about veganism at a time where I had never heard it ever spoken about on mainstream media. And yeah, so ultimately I was just very grateful for the opportunity.
While you're traveling now, are your travels based on where you're giving talks, or are you picking places that you want to go to? And how are you interacting with the locals, and what impact are you making just one-on-one?
Costa Rica, maybe.
That would be a great idea.
Well, one of the most, so basically we travel depending on where James can give a speech and have the most impact, and where we can arrange some events. And yeah, that's where we're basing our nomadic lifestyle on, I guess, right now. So we were just actually in Costa Rica last month, which was incredible. We had a friend who invited us onto her retreat to basically talk about, both of us were going to be speaking about the ethical side of veganism, because the retreat was going to be full of environmentalists, a lot of them not vegan, a lot of them who hadn't yet understood the impact of animal agriculture on the environment. And James gave this incredible 3-hour speech about the ethical side of veganism. And these are people who are very passionate about social justice and doing whatever they can to make the world a kinder place with no oppression. So it was such an incredible crowd. I don't think that I've ever been present at a speech or at an activism event where everyone was just so engaged and so had questions and was willing to be okay, if this makes sense, I'm going to adopt it then. So that was really special. And what ended up happening, which was really unexpected, is basically the Costa Rican owners of the small permaculture farm that my friend was running this retreat out of to support this family, who don't even speak English. So we had a friend who was translating his speech live in Spanish to them, as he was speaking, which was kind of funny because he didn't realize that she was translating. So there was these two people speaking in the back of the room, and he kept looking at me can you tell them to stop talking, because it's the middle of the speech, and he didn't realize
they were distracting my Oh,
It's
Still
so
halfway
distracting.
They must be talking about something so interesting
Yeah.
because they've been talking for half an hour non-stop. Like, what the hell are they talking
And they were just
about?
translating, but
I had no idea what they were doing.
but it turns out that the owners of the permaculture farm who like have a couple cows that they, you know, the grandmother who is part of the family, you know, has been sending them to the slaughterhouse for the last several decades. They want to go vegan now, like the permaculture farm family. So that was just so surprising and so incredible because these are really good people who care so much about the environment and doing the right thing, but they're so it's so culturally ingrained that this is what we need to do, and at the very least we need to use these cows because we need to use their manure for what we're doing, even though we have other alternatives for compost systems. So that was really special to see the impact on this local community in a way that was really unexpected.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, and you know, we got to meet the animals who now won't be slaughtered. So it was very special in that regard as well, to just see them and know that they're going to live so much longer and they're not going to have to go through such a incomprehensible, horrific life experience that will end their life. It's so nice to know that they don't have to go through that now.
And think about how these people who run retreats and constantly have people coming to their land, how they're going to start to influence all of those people going forward. So it's kind of unstoppable now,
100.
right?
It's pretty amazing to be able to make
huge ripple effect.
that kind of an impact in person like that. And you just mentioned animal agriculture, and right now there's a huge issue going on in the Amazon rainforest. They're burning down because of the loggers and the animal agriculture clearing land to raise their animals for slaughter. And it's really a huge issue. There was just an article in CNN saying that the world is eating too much meat, and it just all falls into this same message that we really need to be more compassionate and be more aware of what's going on, because the choices that we make to put the food that we want to eat on our plate is really having a global impact on the people, the animal, and the environment. And it shows when these rainforests are burning down right now and we're not doing anything about it. It's pretty crazy.
Well, we are.
Well, we are.
It feels like they're doing something about it, but just do what needs to be done. Tax meat, subsidize plant-based foods, tell people that this is the thing we should be doing. Plant-based diet. This is the cow, pig, chicken, and fish in the room that no one wants to talk about. And that's what people just need to be honest and say, listen, we've been telling you to cut back on meat. What we need you to do is go vegan now, right now. Here's how you do it. This is how easy it is. Don't worry, you can still eat vegan meat and vegan cheese and vegan milk. You're not going to miss out on anything. You're going to get so much healthier. We know this is a fact. Everybody just needs to adopt it and leave the politics out of it and just be honest, and let's just fix this problem, these many problems.
So when people say to you, I used to be vegan, but I can't anymore because it didn't work for my body or my blood type, what's your response to that?
You really wanted to say?
I do, because I want everybody else to respond the same way when somebody says that to them.
Oh, it's very frustrating, but then you have to be like, okay, like, how do I handle this in a way that is going to get this person a step closer to veganism and not be judgy or whatever? But I think that really it just comes down to their specific concerns. So first of all, we need to consider the fact that many people are coming to veganism and adopting a whole foods plant-based diet after a full life of damaging their gut with animal products and refined foods and being sedentary and being exposed to all these toxins. So we're a lot of the time starting a whole foods plant-based diet, not at neutral, but with health problems already going on. And veganism is not a cure-all. You know, it has been proven to reverse heart disease and cancer and all of these chronic diseases, but it's not a cure-all. And especially when we're talking about veganism and not just whole foods plant-based eating, but there are lots of delicious vegan junk foods. So when someone goes vegan and then has health problems, that is certainly not indicative of veganism not being a healthy lifestyle. It just means that there might be certain concerns they have that still needs to be worked through, that certainly has a plant-based solution. That there's nothing that they would need to go back to animal products for. But if someone's not feeling their best on a plant-based diet, that's totally, that's going to happen, right? So I think it just comes down to identifying what their specific issue is. It's totally possible to be deficient in a nutrient on a plant-based diet. It's actually way more common to be deficient in nutrients in a diet containing animal products, and this has actually been compared in a study on nutritionfacts.org. I think that omnivores have an average of 11 nutrient deficiencies, and vegans, I think, have 7. But regardless, it just comes down to eating the foods that will provide you with those nutrients, and all of those nutrients that we need to be healthy can be found in a plant-based diet. So, and then the other factor of that is when you're finding a medical professional to be helping you through this. Like, a lot of the time people are not educated enough about nutrition to be able to be navigating these scary waters of, hey, I don't feel good, I just made this lifestyle change, and then they go to their GP and their GP says, well, put fish and eggs back in your diet because you need to. And that is, it's like going to a doctor who smokes themselves, right? And this just happened very recently, a few decades ago, where doctors were recommending certain brands of cigarettes were better than others instead of just saying stop smoking. And I think a lot of the time we're going to people, most of the time, we're going to medical professionals who are addicted to animal products themselves, who have the cognitive dissonance bias of being consumers in that system themselves. And of course, they're not going to say, yeah, what you're doing is fine, because then they would need to admit that they can do it themselves as well. So we definitely have a gap in the vegan community of access to plant-based medical professionals, and that's something that we, through things like challenge22.com, which is an incredible free 22-day basically challenge to help you go vegan. It's run through a Facebook group, and you have access to nutritionists and dietitians that can help answer all your questions. A lot of the more renowned plant-based doctors have online consults available, and if you just Google plant-based doctors in your area, you will probably find many. But it's difficult when you are struggling with something like that, like, I'm feeling low energy or this or that, or any other health problem that you could also have if you weren't being vegan. Like, it doesn't have to do with vegan. If you're experiencing anything that isn't optimal in terms of your health, and you're going to a medical professional who is not educated on plant-based nutrition, you're going to come out feeling discouraged and like you should just be listening to this person who has gone through med school. But the thing is, most doctors have less than 20 hours of nutrition training all throughout med school. So we really we're asking advice from people who have not tried it themselves and are not aware of the breadth of research we have about plant-based nutrition. So I think it just comes down to instead of being like, this just isn't working as a whole thing, being able to talk to those people with the mindset of, okay, which nutrient are you worried about? And here is where you can get it from. And here I can help you find a plant-based dietitian in your area who can help you figure this out on that level, and just giving them the tools and the knowledge they have to look at their problem more objectively and figure out a plant-based solution. And also just encouraging them that there is one, right? There's nothing right now there's no medical condition that mandates the consumption of animal products. So anything anyone is dealing with, perhaps it does require a certain level of supplementation that the average person on a plant-based diet doesn't. If they have some level of this nutrient doesn't get converted this easily, that requires a dietitian's help, I think, to get to the bottom of. But it's also the reassurance coming from you when you are speaking to someone like that, to be able to say, there is a solution to this, and we'll figure it out, and there's lots of people who can help you. So
yes, yeah. Excellent answer. And blood type she asked specifically about?
Oh, did you ask specifically about blood types? Yeah,
well, you don't need to speak to that in general. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, and a lot of people mention that, and you have a great thing that Dr. Greger?
I think it was Dr. Greger. Well, yeah, the blood type diet is
as scientific.
It has been disproved as
myth,
as quality science. It is based on bad science. It has it holds no weight. And Dr. Greger describes it as saying, eating meat for your blood type would be like choosing a diet based on your horoscope. I'm a Scorpio, so I need to eat meat. You say it doesn't make any sense.
It's not based on it.
The studies show conclusively, the American Dietetic Association, which is based on over 100,000 scientists and nutrition professionals. They have done a meta-analysis of many studies, and the conclusion they came to is that a appropriately planned plant-based diet, vegan diet, can be healthful, is healthful, and has many health benefits for everybody, every human being, from a breastfeeding mother to a child to the elderly, athletes, everybody. So that is the fact. It doesn't say except for blood type O positive. Everybody. It does not matter what your blood type is.
I'm a Scorpio and O positive. Just saying. But
I messaged Dr. Garth Davis asking him the same question about the blood type, and his answer was very simple. There's nothing to discuss. There's no merit to it, period.
So knowing that, we just wanted him to come on the show and have a show about it. And he's like, nope, won't do it. Like,
there's nothing
stupid.
to talk
There's
about.
Nothing to talk about. He's like, come up with another topic.
Talk about some bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So we've talked a lot about different things on this show so far, and so many very important, valid points. If you could just sum something up and give our listeners one important thing that they could do to move forward in a positive direction, what would be the advice that both of you would give to them?
My advice to people would be to, first of all, take it from me, somebody who ate meat every single meal, I didn't even like dogs. I did not care about any animals. I ate meat every single meal. I was a personal trainer for 7 years. I got vegetarians back onto meat. I literally cooked it for them. I was so far the other end. I thought it was impossible for me to stop eating meat. I would never feel satisfied. I would never enjoy another meal. I was not interested at all. Take it from me and from the countless millions of other people just like me who grew up eating meat every single meal, who always thought that was part of a healthy diet, a necessary part to get meat, to have meat for protein, dairy for calcium, eggs for omegas, all that crap that is not true. So many people believe that. And so because of so many of these beliefs, that we won't enjoy the vegan food, that we won't feel good on vegan food, that we need to eat animal products for health, it can seem like a daunting task. Change can seem like a daunting task. And I would just say this, that it is so much easier than what you expect it's going to be. And it is infinitely more rewarding than what you would expect it is going to be. The changes are simple. You're going to have cereal anyway. Just have soy milk on your cereal. You're going to have a burrito, have beans instead of meat, have guacamole instead of sour cream and cheese. You're going to have spaghetti bolognese. Instead of using meat, use lentils. There's so many simple little swaps where you'll still thoroughly enjoy your meals. In fact, enjoy them more because you know there's no cruelty and death inside of them. You'll enjoy meals more than you ever have. You'll expand the amount of different types of enjoyable food you eat rather than cut them out. It's an expansion of the enjoyment of food, 100%. You just need to get rid of the things that are holding you back from that. So what I'm saying is, it seems daunting. Trust me, I know. It seems like the hardest thing and you feel like you don't have the willpower, you don't have the strength. Just start somewhere. Make a change. Do what you can do today. Do what you are comfortable with. For some people, that is going vegan overnight. For some people, that is having one vegan breakfast each week, or starting with meatless Mondays, or going vegetarian first, or doing a 22-day vegan challenge, or any of the countless other ways that you can start on this path. Don't expect to be perfect straight away. It takes a bit of time to get used to it, just like any behavior change. Figuring out, reading labels. Does this thing I usually buy have milk or, and just what do I do at this restaurant? And there's answers to all those questions. You just join some vegan Facebook groups local to your area. For example, I'm from Sydney, Australia. I'm a member of Vegans in Australia and Sydney Vegans. I want to know what vegan products are in my local supermarkets. On Facebook, yes. I want to know what vegan products are in my supermarkets. What what restaurants I can go to. I want to meet with other people who are vegan so I can kind of just get a bit more involved in the lifestyle. I want to ask them questions as they come up. That's what these groups are for. So just start somewhere. Have the goal to become vegan. Nothing else is good enough. Anything less than being vegan is you're still part of a massive problem, and it's not okay to not be vegan. It is absolutely not okay to cause needless suffering to innocent beings and to destroy the environment and on a personal level. You're destroying your own health. You're committing slow suicide by consuming these animal products. So have the goal to become vegan and then just start stepping. It might be such a small step, and then maybe just another and another. And there really aren't very many steps for most people. You'll be there before you know it. Maybe it will take a week or a day or a year, but just start moving. Make that your goal and continue on. Continue on the path until you're there. Get assistance where you need it. The help is widely available, absolutely free, all over the internet. Millions of recipes at your fingertips. Millions of vegans who want to help you change and help you live this incredible lifestyle. We're here for you. So that's my advice. Have the goal to do it and then just start moving, and don't beat yourself up if you make mistakes, and don't overwhelm yourself to the point that you think, oh, it's too hard, I can't do this, and you quit. Just take it at whatever pace you feel that you can sustainably do.
Guys, you come together so synergetically.
Let her give her answer, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, Carly hasn't gone yet.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Were you just responding to me? Had you forgot?
No,
I just wanted to hear.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to hear what Carly
I want to hear. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll do. That was awkward and weird.
No, it's all good.
That was very comprehensive. I guess I would just, the one thing I would want to reiterate that really stuck with me was just the non-necessity of it. If this was something that we needed to do for our health or for our survival, like back in the day, it would be sad, and it would be something that would still be awful to take someone's life. But yeah, it would be necessary for the health of ourselves and our family and our communities. But the idea that we are contributing to something that is so violent, that is so, like the artificial insemination that very well could be called rape because it's involving restraining an individual and inseminating her against her consent and forcing pregnancy on her and taking her babies away, and the throat slitting and the mutilation, like all of this, even when you're getting your meat from like organic, backyard, best of the best facilities, it always involves the animals being sent to the slaughterhouse where they're being chopped into pieces against their will. Like that is, if we put any other individual in that perspective, in that situation who we're not conditioned to think it's okay with, like for example, a dog or a cat or a human, or even a human who, let's say, was brain dead and didn't have the intelligence, because that's an argument that people use often. But in any other context, it would be a horrific prospect to think about. And because it's so unnecessary, and forgetting about the fact that it's connected to all these other things that we care about, like you said, about people and world hunger and our health and the environment, but even just the ethical concept of as peaceful, nonviolent people as most of us claim to be, the fact that we would be putting our money and voting with our dollar for something that is so violent, that is completely unnecessary, is just a really cool epiphany to have, that you're like, whoa, this is a hectic thing. It's 8 billion individuals a day, because the number is 74 billion land animals a year and 2.7 trillion marine animals who feel pain in the same way. So if you calculate that down, it ends up being about 8 billion individuals a day. Like, that number is unfathomable. But even if it was just one, even if it was just someone is going to die today for something you don't need, is going to be bred into existence and then killed, it's something that none of us agree with. It goes against how we all feel inside, and it feels really awesome to release that and not be a part of that system anymore. It's a huge step in the direction of living with a lighter footprint and living with a more with a worldview that includes everyone in our compassion and in our consideration of. So it's a great thing, and it's for everyone, even if you're not an animal lover. Most of us don't want to cause unnecessary harm, and that's all that this lifestyle is promoting. So
yeah, and unfortunately not enough people want to see where their meat is coming from, and once they do and they start to learn actually where that steak came from that's on their plate, it'll change their perspective. And I think that's one of the amazing, impactful things that you guys are doing, and a lot of other vegans, plant-based advocates are out there promoting a positive message, not only for our personal health, but for the health of our animals and our planet. I just want to really thank you both so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang out with us. If people want to connect with you and reach out and ask you some questions or find you on social media, where would be the best places for them to go?
On Instagram, we're James Aspey and Carly Taylor 269, and then on YouTube, we're James and Carly. So that covers it mostly.
Yeah, pretty much. Thanks for having us on. I just wanted to ask you, actually, after giving this speech at your school, did you hear much feedback? Did you hear much feedback from the students?
Yeah, there were. For those of you listening that don't know, Carly came into the school where I work and teach, and he did one of his talks with a bunch of our students. And the reaction was quite positive. There were a bunch of people that students came up to me afterwards, once you've left, even for the next week or so, just asking more questions and showing a lot of curiosity based on a vegan lifestyle and how it impacts them personally. And do I really think they could do it if they're trying to be an athlete, or is it really that necessary? Like just very basic questions. But what I thought was amazing was that it sparked some curiosity, raised some questions, and it made them consider how they were taking in their personal nutrition and living their lifestyle. So it was really impactful. I was able to hand out a bunch of those pamphlets and answer questions. So it was really great. So thanks again for coming, and hopefully we can get you back in.
And they're so lucky to have you. Like, I mean, I can't even imagine if I was exposed to someone like you in high school, like what that would have meant for my own journey. So it's so incredible that your students have a role model like you to ask questions to. And thank you so much for facilitating the speech. Like it's because you were able to get him in to speak that all those people were influenced. So
for sure.
Yeah, it's to be connected to people, just promote the same message, and we're just working together as a team to just get people on board with this. That's what we're all doing.
Yeah, have us back again soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to say the way that you speak is so honest, but not brutal to the ears at the same time. You know what I mean? You're very straightforward. You tell people how it is, but not in an offensive way, not in a defensive way, in a way that really wake people up and make people think. And I saw the faces of those students, and I've seen you speak in a couple of different times now. So, seeing people's reactions, I think that the two of you together make a really great team in terms of the messaging that you each give, although so similar, delivered in your own personal ways. And I just think that it's so great, the work that you're doing. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much. The way that we do this is something that has evolved a lot over time, over a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes. And I say that just to give other people who might be listening thinking, oh, I wish I could say it like that. I get too overwhelmed. I get too angry. Yeah, I used to feel like that too. And it's something that you will just get better at. Keep practicing, practice debating online, keep educating yourself so that you're more confident in your answers, so that you can give the facts without the emotion behind it. And yeah, the more that you practice, the more effective you'll be at waking other people up.
Beautiful. Thanks again so much, guys. We're going to link to everything that we talked about at planttrainers.com. And I can't wait to see you guys again in person. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Sounds
Our
good.
pleasure.
Bye,
Thank you.
guys. It's awesome to connect.
Thank you. Okay.